Hello again, Python programming students. Welcome back to the Mission Python Code Your Own Space Adventure Game project. Today we're going to finish up in this video the second part of Chapter 2 that will cover pages 42 through 46 in Chapter 2. And again, there's not much code writing going on, and it's a review of list in Python. And in this section, we will actually create some code to create a two-dimensional grid and put some things in that grid. So let's go ahead and get started. Get to my table of contents, and then I'll click down to where we are. So Chapter 2, we're going to start this section making maps from list, the emergency room. So again, tells us navigation is an essential skill for an astronaut. Must always know where you are. And again, most game developers will set up their game in a grid format, the game environment. So part of this emergency room, when we start the game, we're going to navigate. If you remember playing the game earlier in the introduction, we're going to navigate to a part of the ship called the emergency room and try to fix our spacesuit, the leak in our spacesuit. And so let's see how we might create a list of objects in the emergency room in Python. So here is our map, and notice that it's just numbers. This is a very convenient trick that a lot of Python programmers and even other languages will use to indicate, hey, that particular object is this based on its numbers. So we see a list down here that if it's a 1, it's going to be fertilizer. If it's 2, spare oxygen tanks, and so on. So in this particular map, we have a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. So we have scissors, toothpaste, spare oxygen tanks, and fertilizer. So this is our activity, listing 2-1.python. So we're going to create a new file in idle, and I still have my idle up. So I'm going to pull it up, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a new file. And let me get my screen situated so we can see the book behind us, as well as my face, even though that's not as important. Alright, so basically here we have a convenient way to make a two-dimensional grid that is simply a list of lists in Python. So we're going to make one for the room map, and we're going to print that room map out. So we can just start with our variable name, room map equals, and then again, this is a convenient way to create our list. So we have our opening and closing brackets for the entire list, and then each row, each part of our room map is going to be a list itself. So we're going to create some lists and separate each item in the list by commas again, even if it's another list. And so if you notice, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, or 5 rows, sorry. And then also notice that we do not need a comma after the last one. That will actually cause a syntax error. You can try that and see. And that's what the red alert is talking about down here. So now we're just going to put the numbers as we see them there. So we're going to do 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So we have a 5x5 grid for our particular room. And just to save a little time on the video, I'm going to copy and paste. Again, I would encourage you to actually type in the values. That helps a little bit. So we notice on the second row we have a 0 for the first item and a 2 for the fourth item. Then on the third row we have all zeros, so there's nothing on the third row of significance. On the fourth row we have a 3 as the second item in the list. And then on the fifth row we have a 4 as the last item in the list. And so that is our list. And then remember, in Python, if you want to print out a list, you just simply print the list's name. And so I'm going to print room_map. And then we can save that. And it's wanting us to save this particular script file. This particular Python file is listing 2-1. So I'm just going to pull one of my previous ones. And again, you want to save this in your Mission Python folder or inside the escape folder if you made the escape folder when you downloaded the files. All right. And then the next thing we can do after we save it is run it. And since we're not requiring anything from Python Game 0 or Pygame 0 in this particular program, we can just run it simply by doing what we're used to doing in idle. So run module, and then it will print it out. And so that's what we should see on the screen, and that's exactly what we do see. And match that up with what they have in the book down here at the bottom. Again, it's going to look a little different depending on how large your window is when you run it. Now on the next page, it talks about how you can find different items in that particular grid. So notice the way the grid is set up. Okay, so the Y values are which list are the rows, and then the columns is which list items. So it's a little different than you might think of in math, because in math we go X coordinate first, then Y coordinate. We're trying to find a point on the coordinate plane. But here we want to find the row first, so that's going to be the Y value. Then we want to find out which item in that row we're interested in. So make sure you read over that and pay attention to this red alert. And then it goes through and it's going to work an example. And in the example, it goes back to the shell. So remember, when you see these 3 greater than signs, that is a shell command. So it's actually back in the shell for that. Okay. And then it talks about how you can swap items in the room. Later in our game, we'll actually go in a particular location, and we can actually interact with the items by pressing the space bar to get more information about that item. Some of the items we can actually pick up. So once we pick them up off the map, then they don't need to be on that map anymore. And so we will see how we can actually make those items disappear. And you can probably think about what we would do instead of setting it, what number we might set it to if that item disappears. And again, here's another training mission that you can try on your own and make sure you understand the concepts. And then you have your checklist. Again, the functions that we looked at in our list. And then you have your mission debriefs. These mission debriefs are always the answers for those missions, and to see if you got those correct. All right, I hope this helps. This concludes Chapter 2 of our Mission Python project. And so next video, we'll look at Chapter 3. Thank you until next time. Bye.